There's a difference between being ambitious and being fucking stupid, right? So being ambitious is having a goal which is realistic, but a little bit further ahead in the future. Whereas being fucking stupid is something, it's not realistic to achieve it in a short time frame, basically. So I'm going to give you an example of what is realistic and what is fucking stupid. So for example, if you are, for example, a 5'9" ginger guy with really shit genetics and has only been training since he was 21 and who wants to remain natural, me having the goal of wanting to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger is fucking stupid. 1, because I'm 5'9". 2, I only started training when I was 21. He started training when I was like 13, 14. 3, I want to remain natural. He's on gear. He was on gear. 4, his genetics are what considered perfect, whereas mine are very, very average. So that is fucking stupid. It's not realistic. It's not ambitious. Me saying that I want to win the world title at the Olympia, that's fucking stupid. It's not ambitious at all. It's just fucking dumb. Me having the goal instead of wanting to do a photo shoot, for example, or wanting to be a certain weight or lift 200 kilogram deadlift, that is ambitious, because a 200 deadlift, very, very difficult to do so, but I think that I can do it given enough time. That is ambition versus realism. There's another one as well. If I say to you, right, you can lose 5 kilograms without ever eating fruit or vegetables, that's fucking stupid, because you can do that. It's going to be incredibly difficult to do so, incredibly hard to get to that point, and it's probably going to take you a lot of time and a lot of stress and a lot of misery. It is fucking stupid. Instead, having a goal of you want to get to where you want to be whilst eating whatever you want, that's ambitious, but it's also realistic. The thing is, a lot of people always set themselves goals which are too ambitious but ultimately too stupid, because if you set yourself a really difficult goal, and which is incredibly ambitious to try and do and therefore incredibly stupid to try and achieve, then ultimately you're going to end up in a world of failure, and you're also going to be incredibly deflated and incredibly upset and incredibly down when you do not achieve that goal which I mentioned. So you need to set yourself realistic goals, and this actually comes on the back of a check-in which I actually did with one of my team members called Shamima. Now, she was speaking about getting up at 5 a.m, trying to go to the gym, I think like 3 or 4 times in the week. Getting up at 5 a.m 4 times in the week, that is incredibly stupid, because that sounds disgusting. Now, I don't like mornings at the best of times, but at the end of the day, trying to get up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym 4 times a week, that isn't an ambition. That is absolutely stupid in my opinion. So at the end of the day, you need to set yourself a goal which you can achieve, which is realistic, but isn't fucking stupid. Because if it's fucking stupid rather than ambitious, then there's going to be a very, very high likelihood that you're not going to do that. And it's also the reason as to why people fall off track with their New Year's resolutions quite quickly, because they set themselves unrealistic, fucking stupid goals by restricting all of your favourite foods and all of your favourite drinks, restricting sugar, restricting takeaways, restricting this, and then ultimately they end up giving up about 2 or 3 months along the line, because they've set themselves a goal which is not realistic. We live in a society now whereby eating these things is the norm, especially if you've grown up eating these things, then completely sacking them off and restricting them completely is an absolutely wild thing to do, and a concept which I don't recommend you do. However, setting yourself a target of eating less of them, probably only eat takeaways at the weekend, probably only have one brew with sugar a day, probably reducing the amount of high caloric foods that you're eating throughout the day, probably only having 1 snack a day, that is a more realistic, still ambitious, because it's a challenge. You want it to be a challenge, because if it's not a challenge, then you will get bored of it. You need to have something which is ambitious. You need to have something which is a challenge, but not so much of a challenge that is fucking stupid, and therefore it's hard to achieve. It's trying to find that nice in between being challenging but not being overly ambitious. Find the nice in between, and if you find the nice in between, you'll stick with it because it's enjoyable, because it's a challenge and you'll want to push yourself, but you'll also stick with it because it's not so difficult that you can never see yourself doing it. Be nice in between. Be ambitious but not fucking stupid. Make it a challenge but not so challenging that it's impossible to achieve. And that is how you stick with something for long enough to achieve it. If you'd like any questions being answered, please feel free to send me a DM on my Instagram at k.p_health. If you want any of my free resources, including my Ultimate Eating Out Guide, my 5-ingredient recipe book, and my free alcohol cheat sheet, send that message through to my email address, kieran@kphealth.co.uk, and I'll send that through to you, no strings attached. In the meantime, have a lovely rest of your day, have a lovely rest of your week. I will speak to you again very, very soon. Peace and take care.